Our two crucial settings. Really want those whites to pop. It's possible. You can never get everything. It's so windy. Alright, welcome back team. So today we are heading up the mountain to shoot a slopestyle competition, and yeah, a little day in the life slash sort of show you how I do things. So take you along and put you on top of my camera. Alright team, quick gear check. What have we got? We've got the Sony A9 with the 2470 Sigma on it. We've got the A7 IV. We've got the 150-600 Sigma, the 1424 Sigma, and the Tamron 70 to 180 2.8. So a lot of these things I'm going to show you today are quite specific, I know. It's a very niche market, the snow sports event shooting market, but a lot of these principles you can take into other event work. And yeah, I'll just sort of give you an idea of how I operate, how I think, and how I approach events like this. So we'll see you up there. Alright, so a few quick things. Firstly, it's super cold up here today, so remember, always wear your layers, because you get pretty cold sitting around. You get warm when you're moving, but so first things first, when I get to an event like this, what I like to do is sort of scope out the course a bit and just think about shots and what angles I could shoot, and just get a bit of a lay of the land, and that applies to general event stuff as well. Just sort of know what I'm dealing with. This course is sort of laid out in two different sections, so a bit of a game plan helps. Alright, camera's on. So remember our two crucial settings: exposure compensation and white balance. You can see there I've got it 4800. You can see today is a bit of a grey yucky day as well, so it's even more important to get those settings dialed in, just because you really want those whites to pop. You don't need as much exposure compensation on a grey day as you do on a sunny day, but it's still good to have everything dialed in beforehand. And that brings me to the next point. If you can get there a little bit early and do a little bit of shooting during practice. They always have about 45 minutes practice before an event. I'm a bit late today for that, but you can see I've just come down here and I'll just get in a few shots. If you get a lot of practice time, you can stack a lot of shots and it takes away the pressure from the actual runs, but I'm a bit late today, so yeah. As you can see today, our course goes all the way down these rails, and then it goes down there and into the jump, so it's sort of two sections, so it's a lot to shoot, and that's where you just got to cover your angles, cover as much as you can. You can see this angle we're doing here, shooting quite tight on this rainbow rail. Just got to wait for someone to hit it, but you can kind of see my angle straight across there. Nice and compressed, 2.8. See if we can get the shot. Here we go. Nice. What we're looking for. There's a lens I use a lot, the 70-180 Tamron, basically a 70-200 2.8 on these types of events. Super handy focal length to cover a lot of different angles. As you can see here, I'm shooting up onto these rails, quite compressed front on, and then I'm also shooting across and onto these ones. So it's always kind of cover your bases with two angles. It is hard on these events, and sometimes you can just set up at the bottom with a real long lens and shoot everything, but today we just cover what we can because it's quite a spread out event. So usually with the runs, I'll shoot the rails for the first run, and then I'll shoot the jumps for the second run, because all the competitors will get 2 heats or sometimes 3. So you just got to be strategic in how you do it. Alright, so you'll notice I got my ultra wide on now, my 14-24. One thing I wanted to say is, especially with young kids, when you're shooting in close to the rails, you don't want to get too close, because with the bigger kids, you can, you know, and the adults or whatever, like the pros, they're used to media, so you can get right in there, get right under them, get the shots you want to get, but with kids you've got to be a bit more cautious. So I tend to not get too close to the rails when I'm dealing with kids for that reason, and that's also why I always wear the fluoro. That's a kids competition, just so they can see me, and yeah, just doesn't give them as much of a fright when they come over the lip and see a photographer standing under the rail. So just be conscious of that when you're working with younger athletes, younger kids. They can be a bit jumpy, and the last thing you want to do is put them off on their run. So yeah, just be conscious of that. But we're just going to shoot this rainbow rail here with the 14-24, get a couple of wides. Here we go. Nice. Coach in the background, but that's all good. See what I mean? Some of the older kids can get a bit tighter. They don't mind it because they're used to it and they love to show off for the camera. But the real young ones, you really got to watch it. So when it comes to picking features to shoot, in a rail section, I always look for the most interesting feature to sort of concentrate on, because that's where you're going to get the best shots. In this case, it's this rainbow rail. But then a lot of the bigger features, especially on a comp like this, a lot of the young athletes won't hit it. So you've sort of got to prioritize your shots and your angles on certain features that a lot of riders are going to hit. And with these types of competitions, it's more about just getting a good photo of all the competitors, because they're just young kids at the end of the day. I'm not really looking for bangers. The light sucks, you know. The parents want a cool photo, the kids froth on it. So just try and get as many shots as you can, basically, instead of concentrating on just the real good ones. So yeah, sort of waiting now. We have rider briefing soon, and then we'll be into it. So events like this can be times when lenses like this, the 150-600, really come in handy. You see I got it on my second body ready to go, and it just allows you to cover a lot of the course with such a long focal length. Again, not much light, you know, it doesn't let as much light through as all my 2.8s, but the versatility in how far you can shoot with it really makes it worth having in the bag. And then obviously that gives you a idea of the importance of a second body as well, so you can run the two cameras with the two lenses on and just cover more ground. And again, that is what makes you stand out as an event photographer, just getting way more images than what the client would have expected, and more angles and all that good stuff. So this is when you start to get warmed up. When you start walking around the mountain, I usually just leave my board in one spot sort of mid-course and walk around. I just don't like carrying it around and running the risk of dropping it, so I just put it somewhere safe and just walk. But this is when you get hot. So I'm just heading up to shoot the rider briefing, and again, you know, it's not really necessary, but one thing you got to remember, even once the runs start, is, you know, you can just move around the course as long as you've got the right gear to sort of cover everything while the runs are dropping. You'll be sorted. Like I said, just prioritize your angles, and as they drop, make sure you're in a spot where you can get an image. This is just how I do things. I just can't stand sitting in one spot. I like to mix it up and get some variety in there. So
we're going to start off with under 14 boys. Ski and snowboard, then we'll go to girls, and then we'll go to open.
The last rail feature in the first jump, so if you need to return to get momentum to get to the next jump, you're up.
alright, so they're about to start first runs, and remember they'll always drop the younger ones first. So you want to position yourself near features that you know the young ones will hit, and then yeah, usually just work my way down through the rail section initially. So I'm here at the first feature. There's 3 rail features, so I'll work my way down as the runs come through and just try and get a shot of every kid. Again, you're never going to get bangers of everyone, but you've sort of just got to have a strategic plan. And then second runs, I'll concentrate on the jumps down the bottom. A quick settings check before we start, so I know you'll be curious. Alright, shutter speed 1/1250. We're at 2.8. We're at plus 0.7 on our exposure compensation, and ISO we just shoot auto, and I just cap it at whatever. I've got it capped at 12,800, which is a bit high, so I'll bring that down to 6,400, and that's plenty. And then yeah, white balance 5,000 Kelvin, which is for this type of light what we want. Don't make it too cool, don't make it too warm, just nice crispy whites. So yeah, if it was sunny, I'd dial my exposure compensation up to +1 or more, just because you need a bit more to overpower the bright sun. But yeah, that's our settings check, and we're about to get underway. I forgot to mention, obviously, AFC on the autofocus, and I use the tracking, whatever you call it, AFC tracking on the A9. So it locks on and just tracks my subject, and it works great. One thing you'll notice, even with the young kids, I never stay still. Very rarely do I take the same shot twice. I always move a little bit. See, I'm on the other side now, so I just constantly move around, shoot different angles. Another pro tip, always zip your bag up. No matter where you put your bag, someone will always manage to spray snow in it. Cover your gear in snow. The other thing to note is we're always looking for clean backgrounds. You can see I look up at that rail, clean-ish behind it, except for the chairlift. And then over here onto that rail, sort of clean, compressed mountains in the back. So it's all about angles. You don't want all this messy stuff behind your rider. You want to find the alleyways where there's a clean background. Another thing to remember too is timing the drops. You sort of, with little smaller events like this, I don't have a radio. On bigger stuff, I have a radio. So I can, I know when people are coming, but with this, you just sort of got to be switched on, always watching up. And if you can, get eyes on the dropping tent where they drop from, so you know they're coming. But yeah. Another quick pro tip, if you don't have a radio, is you can usually hear other people cheering them on when they drop down for their run. So if you hear cheering and let's go and all that, it usually means someone's on the way. One thing to remember when it comes to snow sports is your images are only going to be as good as your subject. And I shoot everything from pro riders to little 5-year-old kids competitions. So, you know, don't expect to get real bangers with little kids just sliding over little tube rails. It's, you know, now they're dropping the opens in this comp and they're a bit more exciting and obviously more skilled. So the better your rider is, the better images you're going to get. I'm really just waiting for somebody to hit this rainbow rail behind me, but not many athletes are, so we'll keep waiting. Another quick pro tip for when I'm shooting stuff like this where I can't see the riders coming is I'll hold one eye in the viewfinder so I know my framing's good, and then I'll have the other eye open looking for when the rider comes, so I'm sort of ready on both aspects. I see the rider coming with my left eye, but I know that my framing's good looking through the viewfinder with my right eye. So yeah, pro tip for you. Someone just finally came and hit the rainbow rail, got a good shot, so happy days. Time to move soon. Nice, look at that. Can't see it, I'll put it on screen. Another quick one while I move across the course. If you're going to cut across the course, do it right after a rider's come past. Don't take the risk of being that photographer that gets in the bloody way of the competition, because that is not a good look. So always just wait until you, if you can't see the drop in, always wait until you know it's 100% safe to cut across. Okay, alright, so here's the scenario. I've got 70-200 2.8 on this camera, and then I've got the big long lens on that. So I'm shooting up and onto this rainbow rail with the 2.8 70-200, and then with the super long, hang on, someone comment. Nice. And then, perfect example, I'm going to switch to the big long lens, and by the time they get down to the last jump, I can get a nice compressed shot right there. Oh, front flip, nice. So you'll notice the strategic placement of where I'm positioned. I can see the start gate, I can see the first rail feature, I want to shoot the second rail feature, and I can shoot the third rail feature and I can also shoot the jumps with the super long lens. So see, I can see someone's dropping, so I know they're coming. And then we'll swap to the other camera and get that shot. So as you can see, it's very much a process. You've just got to have your processes. You've got to remember, I've been doing this for a long time too, so I really have my sort of the way that I cover things to get as much of the event as possible on an event like this. But the more you can get, the happier your client will be, and the happier the competitors will be, and especially with one like this with kids, the parents will be stoked, and obviously naturally they're stoked on your images, so they sort of get to know your name and everything just grows. So be strategic and just get the shots. If you're capable of getting them, get them, because it doesn't hurt. I don't want you to overshoot, but shoot enough to where it looks like you've actually covered the event well. Alright, so I've moved down to the jumps now. It's bloody windy and freezing cold. I'm facing the camera this way because it's so windy. So I'm basically positioned on the middle jump again, so I can cover more angles. So I can shoot up to this jump, can shoot up to this jump, can kind of get this one, and then I can shoot down to this one. And if I really have to, I can use my super long lens. Oh, so windy. So if I really have to, I can pull out the super long and shoot right up into the rail section. So I'm just gonna base myself here for the rest of the runs. And yeah. Alright, so last rider just came through, and now I'm walking up this icy slope back to my board. But the thing is, all the stuff I've showed you today this is pretty chill, this is just a little sort of kids competition. Obviously when I'm shooting big comps with big name athletes and pros, I sort of do things a bit more stringently and differently and shoot a bit more diligently, because in those situations when you have press releases and different things on the line, you've really got to get the shot. So pretty chill today, but it sort of gives you an idea of the way I shoot snow sports competitions. Man, this hill is very steep and very icy. Oh. Whew. And this is the problem with leaving your board in a different location, but yeah, and usually obviously on bigger competitions you'd hang around and shoot the podiums, the awards ceremonies and everything, but I'm not going to do that today because I don't want to wait around for 3 hours. So yeah, maybe in a future video when I shoot a bigger competition we'll show you all that process, but I'll get back down to the car and I'll wrap this up. Alright, well that's that. We are heading back down the mountain. So yeah, that gives you an idea of sort of how I do things, and a lot of these things also transfer to just general event coverage. Doesn't have to be snow sports, but if you are interested in snow sports, that gives you a bit of a head start on how to cover it. And obviously if you want to shoot in the snow and you haven't even done it yet, check out that video I did on how to shoot in the snow and get nice crisp images. That'll help you a lot. And yeah, I just got some merch, so if you want to support and go buy some merch, that'd be great. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of other variables that come into play when you're shooting on the snow. It's slippery, it's super cold, you know, things like keeping your batteries warm, all that stuff, how to navigate around the mountains safely, some of the stuff I pointed out, like putting your board away and just approaching it with common sense, really. When you're first starting out, especially when you get thrown into like events or competitions like that, you're very sort of tentative and you don't really know how to go about it. The other thing, yeah, you've got to remember you're there to get shots and cover the event. So, you know, don't hesitate to get into areas that you need to get into to take photos within the rules, obviously, and within not messing up anybody's, any athlete's runs or anything. But, you know, you're there to get the shot, and that's where things like certain gear and stuff allow you to do your job better, like I showed you with the positioning of where you can be with different lenses and whatnot. But it just gives you a bit of an idea of how I work and how I operate when I'm shooting, stuff like that. And yeah, obviously if you've got any other questions, chuck them in the comments. Like always, I try and answer them all. But yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next video. I'll take you out with this epic view. Phew. That's home down there. Back to town. Thanks for watching. You.